Dear friends, when we look outwards at the boundless, the endless, the never-ending universe, we will be surprised. We will then see, unexpectedly, that the truth of life, the truth of the universe, is all contained. And within it, can anyone truly go outside of it? Even if we develop new theories, magnificent and complete, people still cannot escape the net of the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha's realization was truly unique. It's unexpected that suffering, dukkha, is the first truth that we must recognize. I'm afraid we don't understand it fully, don't understand it completely, and think there's some truth outside of Four Noble Truths. If at some point we think that this theory is outside the Four Noble Truths, it's a truth outside the Four Noble Truths, then we've misunderstood. We've become arrogant. There is never a truth that can bring beauty, happiness, and peace to humanity that lies outside of the Four Noble Truths. We must be confident in that. I'm only afraid that we don't understand it completely. Why? Regarding suffering, its accumulation or origin, Sanskrit, Samudāya, its cessation, Sanskrit, Nirodha, and the path, Sanskrit, Mārga, we will define them briefly. Suffering means pain and sorrow, unsatisfactoriness. Origin of suffering is the cause of suffering. Cessation of suffering. In some languages, the word for cessation might be thought of as a verb meaning to destroy something. But no, cessation here is a noun representing the state of no longer having suffering. Remember that. The word for cessation signifies a state of no longer having suffering. It's not like holding a knife or doing something to an object. No, it's not like that. And the final truth is the path, which is the way leading to the state of no longer having suffering. That's the definition we understand from the names of these four wondrous truths. The term often includes the idea of being noble or miraculous. In the West, they are called the Four Noble Truths, the most noble, wondrous truths. So, when we hear about the Four Noble Truths, the first truth that the Buddha compelled us to see clearly is suffering, the truth of suffering. If you hear this, you might be surprised. Why didn't the Buddha talk about many other beautiful things, but instead brought up the issue of suffering first? The Buddha bringing up this issue first surprises us, yet many people keep talking about the Buddha because they heard it briefly and quickly caught on. Hearing the Buddha talk about suffering first, the first truth that we must recognize clearly is the truth of suffering. Many people immediately even the most brilliant thinkers in the world sometimes didn't expect it. They didn't expect that suffering is the first truth that we must recognize, must face, and see it all bravely. This is a very surprising thing. Why is that? I will add that the first Dharma talk about the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha spoke to the 5 brothers of Kaundinya. Who were these 5 brothers of Kaundinya? What kind of spiritual attitude did they have that the Buddha delivered his initial declaration to these 5? The 5 Kaundinya brothers were also 5 accomplished individuals. These 5 were very well educated as they also belonged to the royal lineage. When the Buddha left the royal palace to become an ascetic because the country of India at that time was not very large, the Buddha also walked, wandering from east to place, seeking the path. The intelligence forces or the local officials of King Suddhodana, the Buddha's father, all reported the crown prince's footsteps. It's not that the Buddha left and a royal palace didn't know where he went. No, wherever he went, the royal palace knew everything. But at that time, there was something like a quiet revolution. The king, his father, didn't try to capture him and bring him back. This was because at that time, the king, his father, also felt complicated emotions, both pity and sadness, but also seemed to accept it because he had heard the seer as Ida's prophecy before, hadn't he? He will be a saint who saves the world. Therefore, because of Asita's prophecy, when the crown prince left the palace to become an ascetic, the king was sad, but he didn't send soldiers to capture him. But King Suddhodana's intelligence forces, the local officials, all reported the crown prince's footsteps and where he went. It's not that they didn't know. So, when the crown prince went to each place, how he lived, how he practiced asceticism, the royal palace was informed of everything. The king was sad, but he didn't react. Only Princess Yasodhara, the crown prince's wife, was very special. As soon as she heard the intelligence report that the crown prince was going to a certain garden, wearing certain clothes and living in a certain way in the royal palace, Yasodhara did exactly the same. A great wife. She gave up her soft bed, she gave up delicious food, she gave up beautiful clothes. So she wore rough cloth like ordinary people and ate ascetically. She knew that at this hour her husband was eating, so she lived a wife's life in solidarity. She was a great wife, wasn't she? It's not simple because the king, his father, was saddened by the reports. He knew his son was becoming an ascetic and would face many difficulties, so he had to send people to follow him and serve him. And the 5 Kondinya brothers were precisely the people sent by the king, his father, to protect him, even though they had their own ideals when they left. They didn't just agree to be protectors. They weren't pretending to be ascetics to be protectors. They sincerely became ascetics. They were ascetics, companions, and protectors of the crown prince. But they later left him due to disagreements about ascetic practices. But these men were very talented, very intelligent. These were individuals who diligently practiced asceticism and meditation, who had intelligence and knowledge. The Buddha gave the first lecture on the 4 Noble Truths to them for this reason. Therefore, to hear and understand these 4 noble truths, we must remember that we must be intelligent people, not ordinary people. Today, too, we are sitting here together, listening again to this, which our great Buddha proclaimed first in the first and noblest Dharma talk of humanity, which became the eternal declaration of Buddhism, the 4 Noble Truths. We, too, must concentrate completely and listen with our hearts so that we can realize this supreme truth. Today, we are talking about the truth of suffering, the truth about suffering, but I haven't finished speaking on it, so we will talk about it as far as we can go. But why did the Buddha like to bring up the issue of suffering first, as if forcing us to recognize it? When we understand clearly, we are extremely surprised. We see that the Buddha presented the most essential core that all of humanity. Why often ignores, sometimes talks about and then forgets, sometimes mentions briefly and then forgets. But unexpectedly, the issue of suffering, whether it's pain or happiness, is always the core issue of our entire life. Whether it is the issue of pain or happiness, it is always the issue that we ponder, we seek, we strive for in our lives. All the things we do in this life revolve around the axis of suffering and happiness. Think carefully about this, and you will see that every moment we live in this world, think carefully about it, everything depends on these 2 words. Suffering and happiness. Think carefully about it, and then you will feel it. For example, why are we here listening to a lecture today? Why aren't we going out to play? It's Saturday afternoon. Some people are off work. Why does every action of ours revolve around the axis of suffering and happiness, right? And every day, for example, why do we get married? Because we think we will be happy, right? To have a family, a husband, a wife. Right, because we will be happy. He or she will be happy. But why do we get divorced? Because don't say it's because of debt. That's too painful, trying to avoid suffering. It's clear then, every action, little by little, we are revolving around the axis of suffering and happiness. Life is like that. Many times after the lecture, we will apply this. We say we are going to eat something. In our minds, we will choose what to eat. Today is the first day of the lunar month, I'll go vegetarian. But T's already 8 o'clock, I'll wait until later. But now I'm too hungry, I'll go eat vegetarian first. So I have to think in my head and choose a restaurant that I know cooks well and is cheap, right? Oh, is that happiness? It's happier than a place that is both bad and expensive. Clearly, every tiny action of ours revolves around the axis of suffering, doesn't it? We understand it that way. Today we are talking frankly with each other, so we see that the Buddha, with his wisdom, brought up the truth about suffering, and we are startled when we look back. Unexpectedly, it's true. Our whole life, every small action, every small thought revolves around the axis of suffering and happiness, and we only seek joy to escape our suffering. But we don't know how to look, we don't see the core. So look superficially. For example, saying, I'm eating this because it's delicious and cheap. We understand it that way. But we don't see the core of the problem. Being delicious and cheap is about the issue of suffering and happiness, isn't it? Clearly. So, have we agreed with the Buddha yet? Have we agreed? At least for that action, it's clear that everything we do in life, sometimes we don't express it fully, but the ultimate core of it is still the issue of suffering and happiness. This is why the Buddha, being an extremely wise saint, brought up the truth of suffering first to talk to us. Did the Buddha make it easy for us? He said it very gently, but in reality, it is not easy at all. Because we are far from the Buddha, several levels away. To say several levels is an understatement. Maybe several million levels away. But let's say it's just one level. We are only one level from the Buddha, so we don't bring up the issue of suffering and happiness to analyze. But the Buddha is far superior to us, more profound than us, so he saw the core of life as the issue of suffering and happiness. And when he brought up the issue of suffering and happiness to talk about, the Buddha established a philosophical system, a spiritual system, and a way of resolution completely different from previous religions. Previous religions also talked about things, but they didn't go beyond the issue of suffering and happiness. But the previous individuals, the previous religious leaders, could not bring up the truth of suffering. They just circled around somewhere and often used a divine being as an intermediary to resolve human suffering. Who was the intermediary? God, right? That is, most religions aimed at AGOD to resolve human suffering and never really talked about the word suffering in this profound way. They said things like, this life of ours is temporary, unstable, but there is a God who created everything. And if we live according to his will, after death we will be at peace, we will return to heaven, we will go to paradise. So, those religions used a God as an intermediary to resolve all matters. Is going to paradise about escaping suffering or gaining happiness? And so, seeing the final goal of a person's life as going to paradise is the way for us to escape suffering. Most other religions resolve suffering by promising a goal, being born in paradise, and there is someone who decides whether we go to paradise or not, God. Therefore, we must worship him, we must worship God. But the difficult thing is that God has many assistants, and who are those assistants? Those assistants, the representatives of God, have representatives on this earth who are the priests or clergy, and then there are the unfortunate ones, and the precepts that they pursue in that religion. Therefore, we say we hope that one day, maybe in 4 more centuries, 5 more centuries, humanity will reach a point where all religions might be understood in their essence. There might be dialogue among religions to reach a deeper understanding and perhaps find the most genuine path for humanity to follow. Because at that time, people might by law only be allowed to worship and follow one true path. Maybe that will happen in 5 centuries. But in this century, humanity still has to accept the situation where there are religions with different views, but they must live in peace with each other. They are not allowed to use religion to divide and cause suffering and more hardship for humanity. This is the situation now. And yet, we must respect this current view of humanity. So we don't criticize other religions. Those religions see God as the solution, as the core around which everything revolves to resolve issues. But we know that there is a difference between Buddhism and theistic religions. Buddhism looks directly at the issue of suffering and happiness to resolve it, while theistic religions often go through the intermediary of God to resolve the issue of suffering and happiness. Have we agreed on this point? Have you grasped it? Remember this, okay? From now on, wherever you look, you will understand how Buddhism is different from other religions. We know the difference, but don't argue about who is better or worse. The time is not right yet. In 5 centuries, we will see who is better or worse. Why to live for 5 more centuries to see if our words are true or not? Now, let's not talk about who is better or worse. So the Buddha saw suffering as the main issue to revolve around and resolve, such as the issues of life and death. How should you resolve them? Rich or poor, that's related to suffering. The strong and the weak, the wise and the ignorant, the healthy and the sick. All these issues are suffering or happiness that we must seek to resolve. For example, being old or young, beautiful or ugly are also things that cause people a lot of suffering, aren't they? Right? We will talk about suffering, old age, sickness, and death. So who is most afraid of getting old? I'm afraid. Women are afraid of getting old. Women are afraid of getting old and ugly. Getting old and ugly often go hand in hand. They are afraid. How old are you? You said more than 10 years ago, 10 years old. I'm not going to say it. People would be devastated. So, we see that whether we use God or Buddhism, which doesn't rely on a God intermediary in the same way, in the end, we have to resolve the issue of suffering. When we pray to a divine being to grant us blessings and protect us from accidents, it's all about resolving the issue of suffering and happiness. Now let's talk about science. Does science resolve the issue of suffering and happiness? It doesn't go outside of this issue. Scientists are quietly searching and discovering many new things, but the applications of science are also only for what purpose? To resolve the needs and alleviate the suffering of people. Think carefully and you will see this. Now, for example, they invent and gradually improve in medicine to resolve what issue? The suffering of sick people, right? So, clearly medicine is to resolve the suffering of sickness. Now, for example, science in agriculture resolves what is? The suffering from scarcity. For example, machinery and mechanics resolve what issue? The suffering from laborious creation. That is, resolving suffering by reducing the hardship of hands and right? Isn't that right? When you become more skilled or use machines, your hands and feet become less tired. So, clearly, that is also resolving the issue of suffering and happiness. And what air conditioning for? To resolve the issue of suffering from what? From heat, from cold. For example, now, if you don't have a motorcycle, you don't have a phone, and you want to exchange information. And with each other, what do you have to do? The only way to exchange and talk with each other is what? You have to run and meet each other, right? You have to run. But thanks to motorcycles, we are more immobile. We want to meet each other, or even better, we use the phone and don't have to go. So we think that thanks to the phone, the roads are less congested because we travel less. We only need to make a phone call. So, if there were no phones, would the roads today be 100 times more congested? It would be impossible to manage. So the phone itself relieves traffic congestion, but it also causes suffering because if too many cars appear, perhaps from mass production, and everyone can have cars, then the roads are congested again, very congested. Perhaps not that congested. So we see that whether it's religion, philosophy, Taoism, science is everywhere. All of it revolves around resolving the issue of human suffering and happiness. So, the first truth that the Buddha spoke about, the philosophy of suffering, is truly that the Buddha looked at the core of humanity, the core of a human life, the deepest core that we seek, we are bound by, we are attracted to, we seek, we crave, we dream about. When he mentioned the truth of suffering, the Buddha grasped it. The Buddha's grasp was truly to encompass the 3,000 great thousand worlds, the entire cosmos. Just the word suffering encompasses the whole world in his hand. And so, remember, today when we understand this truth of suffering together, we too are like the Buddha. We have grasped all the essentials of human life in our hands. Therefore, the Four Noble Truths are extremely important. Let's listen carefully. So, we agree with the Buddha that our whole life revolves around the issue of suffering and happiness. Have we agreed? From choosing a dish, to choosing clothes, to even choosing fashion. On trends, it all comes down to the issue of suffering and happiness. For example, let's go back to the fashion trend just for fun. What is it? Why do you buy a trendy dress? Because you think it's foo. And people wear it, so you wear it, it must be fun, right? But after wearing it for a few days, you start getting criticized by the neighbors too much. So why do we stop? Because we don't want to suffer from being criticized by others. We can't stand the suffering anymore. So, has anyone bought a trendy dress yet? Yes, there are people who have really. Honestly, it's honest. We are talking to each other that our whole life revolves around the issue of suffering and happiness. But here, truly, people are not inherently selfish. People have good qualities. Therefore, many saints have appeared among us, and many good people have appeared also because of this issue of suffering and happiness. We are talking to each other that our whole life revolves around suffering and happiness. Do we sound selfish? That is, all this time we have only sought joy and avoided suffering. That's not the case. In this life, there are also many noble people. There are people who, indeed, their whole life is spent revolving around resolving the issue of suffering and happiness for themselves. Their whole life is spent living for suffering and seeking joy for themselves. But there are also people who are the opposite. Their whole life, not entirely, but a part of their life is going to seek joy for others and sharing, reducing, and alleviating the suffering of others. Yes, there are. That's why in this life, in this dark sea of life, we still see many, just like amidst the mud, lotus flowers rise above the suffering of this world. Just like when people are engrossed and revolving around the axis of suffering and happiness, it's like a lotus pond, and we are like schools of fish struggling to find food. But there are beautiful lotus flowers that rise above that. Similarly, in this humanity, besides those people whose whole life is spent only revolving around finding joy for themselves, there are also people who have spent hours and hours in life knowing how to bring joy to others. With their time, they have spent their resources, they have saved a little money, They have dedicated a little time and health to care for others, help others, and bring joy to others. Is that also an issue of suffering and happiness? Yes, it is also an issue of suffering and happiness, but instead of seeking suffering and happiness for themselves, these people have sought suffering and happiness for others. It is thanks to such noble people that our humanity is less gloomy, less dark. It's as if this earth also has fewer natural disasters and epidemics. It's thanks to such souls. And today, when we talk about the truth of suffering, we know that suffering and happiness bind our lives like that, bind our souls like that, and we also know that what we need to aim for is a noble, selfless life. Our whole life, we will spend a lot of our time, a lot of our effort and wealth to resolve the suffering and happiness of others. And thus, Buddhism does not use the means of a god to resolve worldly suffering in the same way some other paths do. That is, it does not use the goal of being born in heaven as the ultimate end. Although in Buddhism it talks about many heavens, and in Buddhism it talks about people who live very good lives, very saintly lives, who practice asceticism and meditation. When these people die, they will be born in heaven. The Buddha said that, but he not consider heaven as the ultimate goal. It is only a temporary result in this cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The ultimate goal that the Buddha wants us to achieve to resolve the issue of human suffering and happiness is what? It is. What is it? Exactly, liberation, enlightenment. We hear this and don't you understand? We say Nirvana. That is, we enter Nirvana and we are completely free from the suffering of samsara. And what is Nirvana? We don't understand that either, do we? So, the noble goal for us to escape samsara, birth and death is these words, liberation or nirvana, but we don't understand much about them. That is why Buddhism is sometimes not as immediately attractive as other religions. The religions say born in heaven, which sounds a bit easier to understand, so people are more likely to strive for it. I remember when I was young, in the neighborhood where I lived in Saigon, I heard dogs barking, and there were people dressed neatly and beautifully, dividing themselves and going out. When they came back from their activities, a young man, just a few years older than me, came to see us and invited us to follow their religion. To this day, I still don't know what religion it was. One day. So I was listening carefully and observing them, and they had a book, maybe the Bible or something, I don't know. They pointed to a picture in it. I saw a tree, a sheep, and a person facing the Sioux. And they asked me if it was beautiful. I looked at the picture. What was beautiful about it? I didn't say it frankly, but I said the picture was simple. There were better color photos then. At that time, I didn't particularly like it. Back then, pictures were mostly black and white. I didn't say it was better. They asked if I liked it. If you like it, follow our religion. When you die, you will go to that place with a lot of trees, a sheep, and a person standing there. What was there? They didn't explicitly say heaven, but anyway, heaven was something that was easy to understand, easy to imagine, because people embellish heaven in a way that is close to ordinary people, relying on their imagination, for example. Then they add elements to it to make it heaven. For example, is this who's beautiful now? It's taller, the tiles are more beautiful. So we can easily understand that heaven must be more beautiful than this house. And now let's talk about the sheep. Everyone is wearing beautiful clothes. We can understand it a little better, right? That is, from the realm of the human world, we deduce a little more to imagine heaven. The Buddha taught that there are 8 kinds of suffering, known as the 8 sufferings. The suffering of birth, the suffering of old age, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death, the suffering of one's separation from what is loved. 1. Venerable Master Hua's Talks on Dharma. www.drbachinese.org. The suffering of association with what is disliked. The suffering of not getting what one desires. The suffering of the 5 clinging aggregates, the suffering inherent in the conditioned nature of our psychophysical components, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. This morning, I read some articles where some people added more sufferings, a 9th or 10th kind, but in reality, they are also included in these 8 kinds of suffering. They just analyze them for her. For example, some people say that when we give sincere and correct advice to a friend, but they don't listen, that also causes a lot of suffering, and they made that the 9th kind of suffering. But that's okay. Now let's talk about the suffering of life, the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Birth is the birth of a life, which is a kind of suffering. When we talk about the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, we should understand this. The Buddha never said that the suffering of one person is only for that person. What does that mean? It means that the suffering of one person, always it causes suffering to others. Remember that. For example, if I have a broken bone, do I suffer? Does anyone else in my family suffer? Not only them, but my parents who raised me. I get hit by a car and break my arm and leg. I'm in pain. My hospital bills also cause suffering for those I love the most, and many times I may not have money. So, suffering is never only for one person. When I die, do I suffer? Oh my goodness, my family suffers. Those who are alive suffer, the one who dies suffers in their own way. Do you see? So, remember this when talking about suffering. Don't think, oh, F the suffering of an individual. Suffering always affects others around them, just as joy can. So, try to live a good life, a happy life with a lot of merit. Then, when you are safe, peaceful, and happy, that also spreads to those around you. But if you are rich or enjoy wealth and you don't extend a helping hand to others, then goodbye to those people. No one is helped. Do you see? That is, most of us are like that. If we are rich, somehow our family around us also benefits. And if we have a virtuous mind, who else benefits? The head monk of the nearby pagoda might also benefit, might he? If we have compassion, who else benefits? The poor and suffering. When we donate to charity, yes, we do. So, this suffering and happiness. The kitchen floor and carrying it to its nest 20 meters away is a huge effort, whereas for us, walking a few steps is nothing, we don't see it. Or a grain of rice is like a bag of precious see to them. To us, a grain of rice is insignificant. So we see that the condition of an ant compared to a human is one of extreme suffering from our perspective. On the other hand, if we look at heavenly beings looking down on us, what do they see? Also extreme suffering. The things that we dream of and strive for, heavenly beings may see them as trivial, like grass. For example, now we see a beautiful outfit. A friend of ours has a genuine brand name outfit or something. We see that it costs a lot of money, say a significant amount. We might have to save several months, say, Lari a little each month to buy that brand name outfit and wear it. That's our dream, and we see it as very important. But to heavenly beings, that outfit is like what? Like a piece of rag. It has absolutely no meaning from their perspective. So heavenly beings looking down on us see us as very much in a state of suffering. For example, now we dream of building a 3-story house our whole life. Yes. How many people achieve that? Isn't that right? And they suffer, strive, save, accumulate, face difficulties, hardships, all to get the money to build a 3-story house. But to heavenly beings, that is like what? Like grass. From the palaces that they already have, which are very beautiful and created only by thought, by merit. For example, they want to have a palace like this, and they concentrate a little and it appears because when they were alive, they had accumulated immense merit, so they were born in heaven and could have whatever they wished. Whatever they wanted, wow. Come. Just like some people living in this world also have such merit that they can have whatever they want. Isn't that right? There are some people who have that. That is, there are people who have spent a lot of time giving charity and helping others, living well with others. Then, in this present life, whatever they dream of will naturally come true. Whatever they want, they will have. Then, it's like that 1,000,000 times over. Whatever you want, you will have it, not like in our human world. We want to have a 3-story house our whole lives. We work, and sometimes when we are almost at death's door, the house is finished and then we have a stroke and die. We don't even get to live in it. But for heavenly beings, it is very easy. So, heavenly beings looking down on us see us as very much in suffering. Thus, we say that suffering and happiness are relative. So, when we are in a certain position, we say that this life has suffering and happiness. Therefore, when we hear Buddhism say that life is suffering, we don't believe it because we say it has suffering and happiness because we are standing in a relative pose. Tian. Those poorer than us are suffering, but those richer than us are happy, aren't they? But if we stand in an absolutely high position, then the entire human life is suffering. Do you see? The Buddha's words are true, aren't they? That is what we say when comparing ourselves to ants and heavenly beings looking down at us. But if we talk about the Buddha, is the life of heavenly beings happy? They're suffering from an ultimate perspective. So, when the Buddha declared that this life is completely suffering, from what perspective was the Buddha looking? From which angle? Absolute. Yes, the Bud. Dha was looking from an absolute perspective, so the Buddha boldly declared that the entire human life is suffering. When we refute the Buddha's words and say that this life is not completely suffering, but sometimes it is suffering and sometimes it is happy, then we are looking from a relative perspective. That's right, many people understand now. I congratulate you, many people understand why Buddha dared to declare that the entire human life is suffering and why some people cannot understand and say that life has suffering and happiness. It depends on the perspective from which we look. It depends on the viewpoint. Looking from an absolute viewpoint is different from looking from a relative viewpoint. Today, you Buddhists have understood this point, and I sincerely congratulate you, because this is the core of wisdom. Don't just read. I am only happy when I see that our life is suffering. This makes some people who have great merit, so their lives are prosperous, but the major have to work hard to support themselves and their families. Most people are like that. It is suffering to maintain this life. It is not easy. Is there anyone who does nothing at all and still live comfortably? No. Sometimes we say, where does merit come from? From where? Yes, from overcoming suffering and helping others. So the merit that we create, while it is very noble, also requires effort. There are two kinds of effort for us to live. One is the effort we make directly to support ourselves. That is the direct EFF, which is easy to see. Looking at it, we see that life is suffering. There is also an effort in previous lives, where we made an effort to help others. We made an effort to create merit to be born in this world and enjoy it. From a superficial perspective in this life, we see that this person did nothing in their past that we know of and still lives comfortably. But in reality, they have made efforts in the past. In short, whether it appears as suffering or happiness now, it is still rooted in effort, still involves difficulty. However, somehow, the direct effort we make for ourselves is is noble, is it? It is not as noble as the effort we make indirectly, where we make an effort and care for others, and then later the merit comes and good things happen to us. We live in this world easily, comfortably, freely. It is still more comfortable, still has more dignity, doesn't it? I am not old yet, but I'm talking a little bit about the value of a human being. The value of a human being. Is due to merit. We are loved and respected by everyone because of merit. A person with little merit is not respected by others. A person with a lot of merit will be respected by others. Now, no matter what you say, no matter how compassionate and charitable you are, you cannot respect a person who is dirty, has no clothes, and is lying on the street as much as a professor who is ethical and each at a university, right? No, because their dignity is different, their value is different, and that is due to their different merit, isn't it? So now, do you want to be a person who is respected? Or do you want to be a person who is looked down upon? If you want to be respected, what do you have to do? You have to accumulate merit. That's what I'm saying. So we see that effort comes in two I's. One is direct effort for oneself, and that is not as noble. The other is making an effort for others, and then later we enjoy the merit. That is more noble. We will choose this more noble path, So we see that whether someone is poor or rich, no one lives a completely carefree and comfortable life. Everyone suffers in some way. That's how we earn a living. Now there are many other things that make us tense and worried. The relationship between people is also a concern, isn't it? In this world, we cannot live alone. Now the basic relationships in the family are parents and children. Parents have the right to abandon their children, don't they? No. Do children have the right to abandon their parents? No. They have to take care of them. Isn't that a worry? Isn't that a concern? That's not carefree, is it? But they have to take care of them because of duty and obligation. So living in this world, don't think of it as just a duty. It's also a karmic debt that you have to take care of. And now, husband and wife. Husband and wife living together have to take care of each other even more. Don't they? Because that is a human instinct and bond. Husband and wife living together must take care of each other. If you forget to take care of each other one day, what happens? The other person might get angry and won't eat. They'll send a message saying, "Are you home?" Right? So Ave to take care of each other. The relationship between husband and wife is a complex, tense, tiring, and busy relationship. That's why I am so afraid that I had to go. That's right, I had to go on the monastic path. Don't you think the relationship between husband and wife is complicated? You have to be faithful and take care of each other. And the issue of fidelity is difficult in this era. Air movies and images are pervasive in this era where dancing and couple dancing can challenge the idea of human fidelity. You have to overcome temptations and maintain fidelity, which is also very difficult, not easy. There are many things to worry about and strive for. Then, with our relatives, with our friends, with our neighbors, with our colleagues, if we are employees, we must have good relationships with our superiors. And if we are superiors, we must take care of our employees in many ways. Relationships are entangled, so living in this world is not carefree, is it? However, when we understand Buddhism, we accept to dedicate ourselves and endure difficulties because only those who dedicate themselves like that can achieve something. Those who are lazy cannot. Then there is the due tie to society, to the country, which cannot be neglected. If we want to do good work as citizens, we must also have responsibility to the country, mustn't we? We cannot be carefree, we cannot hide. Is there anyone who is the best at evading taxes? No. Remember that it is a citizen's duty not to evade taxes. Then there is the awareness of protecting the environment, which means not littering on a street, not cutting down trees, not polluting rivers and streams with wastewater, right? There are many duties. We live in this world, we cannot do whatever we want. So, this life has many worries, and difficulties. Do you see that life is suffering? Do you agree? Suffering from societal upheaval is also a lot of suffering. It is more suffering. Anyone who has lived during wartime before and now hears about war, society is suffering, hatred, killing, and then fighting each other. It is extremely suffering. This year, there has been a lot of drought and the crops have been damaged. But also thanks to the prayers of our people, suddenly a few heavy rains Ave appeared in the past few days, saving some places. So, we must try to recite the prayer for rain with the Buddhists. Do you have the prayer for rain? The cultural program. Well, that's what we have. Even talking about the suffering. Another thing is that past karma from countless eons never leaves us alone, never leaves us in peace. From morning till night, one thing after another. Life is so peaceful, you go to work normally and suddenly you fall and break your arm or leg. Past karma demands it. Suddenly a stomach ache arises. Past karma demands it. In addition to what we have analyzed as far, there is also the karma from the past, like a debt that you don't know about. Now you are practicing Buddhism and when it demands repayment, you know Buddhism. But in previous lives, you didn't. Thousands of eons ago, you were cutting trees and you don't remember anything. But karma demands its interest. It gives you a beating that leaves you half dead. It doesn't care about anything. Sands of eons ago, you don't remember anymore, but it demands repayment. Remember that you must pay back properly and then you will suffer. And in a previous life, you went into the forest and sucked out every drop of honey, which was very hard work for the bees. The bees sucked every drop of nectar from the flowers and brought it back to their hive, building up storage for their young, and then you took a knife and stole it. You don't remember anything about that. That happened 5 eons ago, but today you still have to pay the price. We remember that life is insecure because past karma is ways calling out and demanding repayment, so we are not at peace. Is that suffering? Are you sad? Are you bored? When we hear about the truth of suffering, it is truly gloomy. It is gloomy, but we bravely face the truth of suffering. We must understand this issue completely so that we can gradually rise above it and have an absolute perspective like the Buddha, no longer looking superficially and saying that life has both suffering and happiness. We won't have such shallow views anymore. Instead, we will see things correctly just as the Buddha saw them from the perspective of an absolute saint. This life is completely, but we will also be very brave, as wise as the Buddha, to resolve this suffering in a very intelligent way so that we can bring joy to ourselves and also bring joy and happiness to everyone in the world. Therefore, today, let us continue to dissect the suffering of life. So far, we have talked about various things happening in life that make us sad and suffering. Haven't we? Now, if nothing happens in life at all, nothing at all. We go to work and nothing at all. It is very peaceful. Is it happy? Why isn't it happy? Because we start to feel bored. Oh, something has to happen. Some people are just waiting for something interesting to happen in their lives. Life is difficult. isn't it? We listen to wise advice, then our karmic obstacles disappear, and then we are bored. We start to look for trouble, go to dance clubs, and then we are happier. That's human psychology. We can't stand being idle. When we are idle, we should read sutras and pray to the Buddha or practice meditation. It's okay. Just now you saw it. Didn't you? When you are idle, you pick up the phone and invite each other to go out and drink. So, life is difficult, isn't it? Is it suffering? Yes, it is suffering because we often create it. If we are idle, we are not happy. We like to have something, a little bit. We have to have a little bit of bitterness in our lives so that life is meaningful. We look for trouble. Just now we talked about life as suffering. Now we talk about the suffering of old age. The suffering of old age. Some people live through old age and then die, but some people die very young. Therefore, we are not surveying the suffering of dying young because we are talking about the suffering of old age. In old age, we suffer because there are many inconveniences. Especially because old people usually don't earn money anymore, do they? If you still earn money, you have the right to declare to everyone, I am old now, I can rest. But if today you don't earn money anymore and have to rely on your children and grandchildren for support, you have the right to declare that you were old, that you have become old now. So, do you think a person who doesn't earn own money and has to rely on others for support has a strong voice? That's an inconvenience, isn't it? In the past, you earned money and supported your family and they had to listen to you. Now, your children and grandchildren support you, so you have to listen to them. In old age, we know we will face that, right? So, if we are young and don't accumulate a lot of merit when we are old and can't earn money anymore and others support us, we have to be prepared for everything to be turned upside down. Before, we were the adults, the heads of the family, and everyone followed our will. Now, that position is gradually being pushed back and reversed. Do we suffer? Let's face it gradually, okay? Let's prepare and see it beforehand. If we are lucky enough to have filial children and grandchildren because we have merit, it is less suffering. That is, they listen to us, but they still speak respectfully. For example, if you say, tomorrow buy some things for the death anniversary, in a gentle voice, and they are very filial and say, oh, tomorrow I have to go to work. I can't go for the death anniversary. You will be a little sad, won't you? Tomorrow is the actual death anniversary. Why? But they say the day after tomorrow. What can you do now? They have to go to work. They can't do it, right? That's a filial child. What about an unfilial child? They might say death anniversary. Oh, not going. The suffering is how many times greater? 1,000 times, isn't it? We see that old age is suffering, so we should think about it beforehand, clearly. Okay? Then there is physical decay, so we always feel uncomfortable. What is called old age and weakness? I have experienced many things. People who are healthy always feel refreshed, energetic, comfortable, at ease and happy. People who are weak always feel tired and uncomfortable, always like that. And old people are like that. Since I am also getting older, I am like that. You Buddhists can still fast, right? That is to say, you also have some merit because your hair may be gray, you are old, but you still have the strength to practice Buddhism, which is a kind of happiness. You also have merit. Some people dream of going to the temple to practice Buddhism, but they don't have enough strength to walk. Walking a little makes them tired, and many times they are too lazy to move from the bed. Then they are reminded and they say, okay, I'll stay home and chant the Buddha's name. If they know how to do that, it's okay. Then our senses gradually weaken. For example, our vision becomes blurry and our hearing becomes less acute. So gradually we are like being separated from life. We are living in life, but we are gradually isolated from life because our senses weaken. A familiar person passes by, but we don't see them. Because we don't see them, what happens? We don't call out to them, we don't ask about them. Sometimes people see us as quiet, so they also leave us alone. We gradually lose connections with people. So, old age is like that. It's inconvenient, isn't it? Then memory gradually fades. Just now we talked about how life makes us feel lonely. The feeling of loneliness is scary in old age. It's very scary. There's an American movie, Baby's Day Out, about a baby who knows how to crawl and walks after a duck. Finally, he goes into a nursing home and the old people there are overjoyed. All this time they have only seen other old people and everyone has gray hair. Seeing a young child accidentally crawl in makes them overjoyed. We understand the feeling of loneliness. The feeling of loneliness is scary. As memory fades and the ability to recognize weakens, our spirit declines, so we are no longer respected in the same way. That is, when we are young and healthy, we might argue about something small, and people respect us. But in old age, we start to become confused and say wrong things repeatedly. When we advise our children and grandchildren on how to do business, the modern way of doing business is different, so people don't see our advice as wise anymore or beneficial to them. Others listen but don't agree and don't respect old people as much. It is the natural law. However, in Buddhism, old venerable monks are still respected and even more respected. Why? Because they follow the path of ethics and wisdom. Therefore, for the most part, the older venerable monks get the brighter and clearer they become. And so, even in old age, they are not looked down upon by people. As for worldly people, because they don't follow the path of spirituality, they don't follow that path of wisdom, the older they get, their abilities gradually decrease, and they are gradually looked down upon by people. That's what I'm saying. So, we Buddhists who know how to practice Buddhism can avoid that consequence, and we will be able to preserve our virtue and merit until old age. Remember this. For example, when we are young and healthy, we accumulate a lot of merit, so when we are old, we are re-loved, but not always respected in the same worldly way. But we are still loved because when we were young, we did many good deeds and helped others, and we loved and helped everyone, so in old age, we will be loved. But as for respect for worldly capabilities, of course, it decreases because our worldly wisdom is no longer as sharp. People who are wise are respected for their wisdom, but our worldly wisdom has decreased, so we are not respected in that way. But if we have accumulated merit, we will be loved in old age. Therefore, we Buddhists understand karma and we pay attention to this. While we still have strength, we should try to help others to the best of our ability. Remember that. Don't live only for yourself. Sacrifice a little of your food, a little of your clothes, a little of your beauty to care for others. In old age, you will feel comfortable and at ease. When you are young, your children may gather around you, but you still suffer, but you also have a little joy. In old age, your children, they start their own families and gradually, old people are lonely. And another thing is that when you are young, you may have 7 or 8 children like the older generation. But when they grow up, the children disperse to different places, and some visit their parents during Lunar New Year holidays. There is a very good poem. It is a very good poem, but this poem is the 15th day of the 12th lunar month, plucking the apricot leaves. My old father reminds himself on the last day of winter, whether it is the new year or not, he diligently plucks the leaves or the flowers to bloom on time. Children are like flying birds. Perhaps some will come back on the new year. That is the sadness, isn't it? When will they come back? After New Year's Eve, my father sits and watches the smoke from his cigarette float away. The gold coin on the table falls alone in a corner of the golden sky, fragile old age sitting and missing the leaves. Oh, wind, don't make th. You weak apricot branch drop golden leaves. Truly, after New Year's Eve, my father sits and welcomes the new year alone. It is almost New Year's Eve and no one has come back. Life is like that. There is no unalloyed happiness in old age. But we have been talking in general terms. Who is most afraid of getting old, men or women? Women are often said to be afraid of getting old, aren't they? Because old age means losing your figure, hunching over, graying hair, and wrinkles, right? Aren't men afraid of getting old? Yes. And another thing is that old age and weakness make it difficult to go out. Your children and grandchildren can make you suffer emotionally. For example, some old people, sometimes they are selfish. They want their children and grandchildren to always be there serving them and be by their side. But there are also old people who are good and feel sorry for their children and grandchildren, and working hard, so they suffer even more emotionally from that empathy. So we see that life is like that. Old age has many inconveniences. Today, listening to this lecture, we see that life is too. But remember to be patient and listen further until we talk about the cessation truth and the path truth, and then we will feel happy again. But you have to be calm for 3 or 4 more months, and go back and buy some mouse poison from China. It might not kill you if you drink it, but you will still feel very sick. Earlier, the suffering of sickness. Do we need to talk about sickness? No need to talk about it. Everyone knows about it, right? Does anyone feel happy being sick? No. But remember, sometimes children feel happy being sick because they get to drink bitter medicine, but it is necessary to be sick to have the standard of a celebrity eat delicious cake. It is a stable illness, isn't it? So children sometimes like being sick. But when you are an adult, being sick is very tiring. When you are sick and go to the hospital, you immediately see hell on earth. There are all kinds of suffering. Has anyone never been to the hospital? You are not. If you don't stay there, you also go to visit your relatives and you see a lot of suffering. And according to the meaning of sentient beings, many different kinds of sickness appear, and every sickness is uncomfortable. Remember, the discomfort is the suffering. Every sickness usually causes pain, and it is difficult and debilitating, and even uses death. Death is very scary, isn't it? But sickness is like that. Some people have a headache. A headache is due to what? Why do we say it is temporary? Because we attribute it to something else. What is it? We say it's a brain disease, which sounds scary. We just say it's from a cold or something. But sometimes it's caused by unseen beings. Sometimes when we are living in our house, we don't know that there are also spirits living with us. If we are Buddhists, we believe in that, so we usually chant sutras for them to listen to, and we offer food to them. When they practice Buddhism, why live peacefully with us, and one day they will reincarnate, and our house will be peaceful from beginning to end. But many people don't know about that. In the house, there are 5 or 3 spirits, but they don't know it. They don't chant sutras for them to listen to, they don't offer food to them, and the spirits keep causing trouble, and they get sick with various illnesses, but they don't care. They don't know it. But these illnesses are not serious because we still have merit, and the spirits cannot harm us much. We only catch a cold, have a headache, or have a leg ache, a knee ache. We don't realize that it has a supernatural source, a spiritual source. But 80% of illnesses have a natural source, but normally we don't know it. It is also karma that makes us spend money on doctor, RS and medicine. But if we know, sometimes we can perform a few simple actions. For example, repentance and offering food are a few merits that can make illnesses disappear easily and quickly without having to spend a lot of money. Also, regarding current medicine, there are many negative phenomena as reported by the media. Sometimes doctors prioritize prescribing certain medicines that are widely available, and sometimes the original price of a pill is, say, 5 units, but the patient buys that pill for 12 units. Why? Because when the doctor prescribes it, the doctor might get 1 unit per pill, and the person selling the medicine might get 2 units per pill. The person who introduces the medicine representative gets a few units and gets paid. So the patient buys it for 12 units, while the original price might only be 1 unit. And doctors also compete to prescribe expensive pills so that the percentage they get is high. So we are shocked when we buy medicine. In the medicine could cost over $1 million. When I saw it, I was shocked. $1 million for medicine means the doctor might get about $150,000 from that. In this era, we see that ethics is. Why is that? Because the state has called for doctors to revive medical ethics. As Buddhists, we know ethics, so we must avoid this. Remember that you must treat patients out of compassion, not for your own profit by prescribing expensive medicine. Be careful about that. Now, the suffering of death. Is death suffering? Many people think that when you die, you are free from suffering. No, that understanding is very shallow. To be precise, death has not ended everything. When we die, we enter a new state of existence that we do not know anything about. It is different from moving from one place to another. For example, now we are in Saigon and we have a reason to to live. So we know roughly about the new place because we have gone there before, taken care of papers and housing, so we know the place we are going to. Then, when we leave here and go there, we are sure that the place we are going to is not too difficult to live in, given our circumstances. But when we die, do we have that? Absolutely not. We don't know what kind of place we are going to. We don't know. Have we tried going there? Has anyone tried going there and coming back to prepare their luggage to go for good? No, right? So we completely do not know what kind of place You're going to. And another suffering is that we do not know how much sin and merit we have created. If we leave this body and go to a new realm and we fall into the endless darkness of hell, that is. Truly, or if we leave this body and enter another life and are reborn as an animal, that is truly pitiful. So, we do not understand anything. That is the first suffering. Therefore, generally that is why everyone is afraid of death, because death forces us to go to a place that we do not know what is behind that door. If the door were opened a little for us to see, we would be very afraid. The T is why all of us are afraid of death, because we do not know where we will go after death, right? Right? I ask and you answer immediately. First and foremost, who suffers? Who suffers? Brighten our lives and also brighten humanity, which is currently sad. Sing village girl, ah. Truly the sad rain of the past still speaks of separation, the fate of separation. I am sad. The sad leaves love chewing betel nut. Somehow is like that already. Going south. Namo Amapa Buddha. Today we will continue listening to the lecture on the Holy Truths. We say that the 4 Holy Truths are distinguished from the 4 Noble Truths explained last time. Today we will also continue to talk about the truth of suffering. When we hear about the truth of suffering, we feel a little sad. But we are forced to listen in order to face reality. There are some truths that we do not see, we can't seal them, so we live in illusory happiness, not knowing that our lives are gradually passing with dark years until we die and we still have not escaped suffering. But here, when we know the true year of life is suffering and we have a direction to resolve it, one day we find the truth, we practice Buddhism and achieve results, or one day we close our eyes and pass away, we will go in true peace. Otherwise, if we seek false pleasures, one day we will die in suffering and insecurity. Therefore, we must be patient even though what is said may sound pessimistic or it has been explained in Yuka way. It is like a healthy person who can still go out and play and dance, but a person comes and says you are infected with the HIV virus. Hearing that makes you sad, but sometimes it is the truth and you have to seek treatment. Who knows, if you try to treat it, you may not develop AIDS. But if you do not live a healthy life from the HIV infection, it will develop into AIDS. And by the time it becomes AIDS, you will only be left with cement. Similarly, if we know that we have a serious illness and we live a healthy life, practice Buddhism, and exercise, our illness will not develop. It is the same. So, when we say that the nature of life is suffering, it may not sound good and some people may say it is a cruel truth. But if we know that truth, we will try to live more correct. And better. Then, truly, one day when we achieve happiness, that will be true happiness. But if we do not know that life is suffering, and we do not practice Buddhism in the right direction and see pleasures, the pleasures we find are only temporary and they are just pain and suffering waiting for the future. Its other side is just pain and suffering. So here, we know that life is suffering. So that when we find joy, that will be the true joy of this life. Now let's talk about the 5th suffering, which is the suffering of separation from what is loved. Love here, or affection, craving, has many branches like liking, not just loving. It has many kinds. This is about loving, cherishing, valuing, liking, craving, yearning, etc. It goes in many directions, but it has different levels and different strengths. For example, if we are fond of a puppy, ET in our house with a moderate level of love, then the intensity is light. What we are talking about here is what we have. For example, now we have a necklace with a beautiful pendant and we like that is also liking, but the level is not strong. But if the love is too strong, the intensity of affection is strong, then when we lose it, we will suffer. So the suffering of separation means separation, which means having to be apart. For example, if we lose something we love and it is no longer with us, we will be very sad. That is a principle that is easy to accept, isn't it? Isn't it, Ver? Why logical? There are many things, but I will mention only a few here. What we are analyzing here is the level of love and affection we have for that object, whether it is much or little, and when we lose it, we will suffer. For example, a toy we like, when we lose it, we are annoyed for a day or two. But if it is someone we love with all our heart and that person is no longer with us, or that person dies, or that person leaves us, etc., that is, they are no longer ours and not near us, then the pain is how? It is very, very terrible, very intense. The more you love someone and have to be separated, the more you suffer. This principle is very true. Has anyone here ever suffered from a broken heart? Has anyone never experienced that? Yes, some people have a little bit. So, sometimes some People who are so heartbroken that they end up becoming monastics. That's right. So that's why we have the reformed opera play Lon and Deep. That's how it is. You should watch it. Then everyone who becomes a monk will be thought to have done so because of a broken heart. So sometimes monks have to be very careful. For example, someone who holds the position of director or chairman, they don't want to lose it. They don't want to lose it, but can they keep it forever? No. One day they have to retire. So most POP who retire from the position of director or chairman have the same feeling, sadness and emptiness. That is a definite fate that no one can avoid. So that is something that we Buddhists must foresee. If any of you Buddhists are currently holding any position, you must know that you value that position, so one day when you leave that position, you will be sad. Therefore, what should your attitude be? So, from now on, what should you do? You must, in your own home. Most of this is about selfishness. For example, someone who holds the position of director, if they see that position as their glory, then their love for that position is a potential selfish mind, and selfishness leads to suffering. Next time we will talk about this cause, that selfishness is the cause of suffering. So, if Omion uses the position of director to care for the people, the country, the company, and the employees, they do not suffer as much when they leave the position because they think that the position belongs to the role, not to them personally. But if someone sees the position of director as their own and as their glory, then when they retire or are dismissed, they will suffer greatly and feel empty and frustrated. So whatever we love very much, we must be careful because that is the seed that causes us suffering. And some people here, mostly men, women, are less likely. Some men value fame more than romantic love. According to the arrangement of creation, romantic love is often the strongest craving, causing the most suffering. It is talked about the most, written about the most, and poetry written about the most in stories, isn't it? Most of the music we listen to today, almost all musicians write love songs between men and women. Rarely is there a musician with a broader soul who writes songs praising other beautiful things. Mostly it's love songs. It's sometimes called brainless love songs. And people are starting to criticize it, like the musician Tan Tung. I'm talking about the musician Tan Tung. The lyrics of the song Fragrant River. Didn't you listen to it? The musician Tan Tung is talking about the psychology of the song lyrics. It's about her you win or lose. It's about how you guide people and how much you love something. In general, we know that romantic love is strong. There are also things that, when lost, cause us great suffering, such as our homeland. Do we love our country? Yes, we do. Therefore, when we lose our homeland or see it suffer, we suffer. People with a broad mind feel this very clearly. This is clearly shown in historical periods when our country was invaded by foreign enemies, conquered, and a yoke of oppression was placed upon us. And those who came, for example, from China in historical times, they conquered our country and tormented our people, and the people suffered. There were some PLE who had no love for their homeland and lived indifferently without thinking, without reason, without conscience, and could even collaborate with the enemy to find a prosperous and comfortable life for themselves. These people did not suffer when their homeland was lost. But those who could think felt the suffering when their homeland was lost. Especially during the French colonial period, the French ruled in a very skillful way with high technology, with management skills, and they also oppressed our people. So, the revolutionaries, the patriotic people, the thoughtful people, everyone as troubled and pained by the suffering of the people who lost their country. Our homeland that we love, when it is lost or oppressed, it is also suffering. In peacetime, we often do not appreciate our homeland, we take it for granted. But when our homeland is lost, we will suffer. Therefore, people must live consciously and responsibly to protect this homeland. That is why. Or there is something else, something even greater than our homeland, but we worship it, the entire planet. This earth is where all of us walk. We walk on this planet. We live thanks to this planet. We live from the fruits, the grains, the birds of the air, the fish in the water. All the beautiful things that we enjoy are from this planet. Leaving this planet is just a cold universe. Very far away, there may be other planets with life, but they are not our homeland, and we cannot set foot on them yet. Currently, in this universe, we only have this earth to call home. To move from this house to that house comfortably. But a villa, what about a villa? It has to have a fence, it has to have a fence, it has to have a big gate, and it has to have a large pack of Asian dogs. That is, when people become rich, they are naturally isolated from the community, aren't they? Just look around the streets and you will see it. Poor houses, no matter how poor they are, the gate is often open and people come and go freely. But in rich houses, you can clearly see the fences separating them from each other. So clearly, wealth does what? Suddenly separates people from each other, doesn't it? Isn't that obvious? Therefore, we understand this and we correct ourselves appropriately. If we are in a poor situation, then it's okay to be poor. When we are poor, we have the compassion of ordinary people and can be happy. But if we are rich, we are very likely to lose the compassion of ordinary people. Therefore, if we Buddhists are unfortunate enough to be rich to W in the lottery and get billions, we know how to adjust so that we do not lose our human connection, do we? Don't lose our human connection. Don't become indifferent to others because of wealth. LL definitely get drunk on wealth and live in a certain way that you are still rich among. No one forces you to live poorly, but in your wealth, you add a little bit of morality, a little bit of charitable work, a little bit of love for your neighbors so that you don't lose your connection. For example, if you are too rich, you will inevitably have a gate and a fence around your house. But hide away. Don't imprison yourself in that prison of wealth, but still know how to open the gate sometimes and go to your relatives and neighbors. Don't lose touch with their affairs. That is, to make an effort to maintain the neighborly love and village community. Or there are things that make us more outstanding and stronger, such as the family home, the family nest, where there are parents, siblings. This kind of love is usually very heavy. So, someone who has to leave their family home to go elsewhere to study or work is usually very sad. But that sadness is still manageable. Because you can still visit them, can't you? If someone has to lose their family home completely and go far away without ever seeing them again, the pain is even greater, isn't it? So life is like remember that whatever makes us happy, whatever we love, whatever we have, we must understand that these are the seeds of suffering. Seeds of suffering. Among the sufferings, we talk about the suffering of sickness, birth, old age, sickness, and death. We talk about the suffering of sickness, and the suffering of sickness is the suffering of the body. The suffering of the body, including accidents, we also consider as sickness. For example, if you fall from a motorcycle and break your arm or leg, that is also suffering of the body. It is suffering from sickness. The suffering of separation from loved ones, meeting with disliked ones, and the 5 aggregates, these sufferings often belong to the soul, to the mind. They bellow into the soul, they are more about psychology. So, the suffering of the soul, let's call it the soul, it belongs to the feelings. In Buddhism, the structure of our psychology, there is a part that Buddha calls the feeling aggregate, Sanskrit, Vedanaskanda. Feeling. Let's call it gently feeling. It has a part that is specifically responsible for suffering and happiness in our soul. It has that part which the Buddha calls the feeling aggregate, which is responsible for the issue of suffering and happiness. For example, if someone we love suddenly sends us a letter saying, "Our love ends here. From now on, we will go our separate ways. Our love was enough like that." Meanwhile, we remember that before, that person promised us, "I will love you forever." But today, that person says that when that sentence goes into our ears, it goes into our brain for us to analyze. When we analyze that sentence, we understand that from now on, there will be no more moments of sitting together by the sea, eating together in restaurants, saying sweet words to each other. We will miss what we hoped for, what we waited for, it will no longer be there. So that is the understanding of our consciousness. So, is that not yet sad? But suddenly it hits the feeling. When we understand the things that are lost and no longer exist, the feeling arises. The feeling of sadness is the sadness of the mind belonging to the feeling aggregate. So, when we love, we are happy. When we lose, we are sad. That belongs to the mind. Talking about it that way. But the sadness of the feeling aggregate is not simply sadness. The sadness of the feeling aggregate can disrupt and even destroy our soul or destroy our body. Sadness and happiness are the terrible, they are not simple. There are sorrows that too heavy and cause illness. Some people are too sad and become ill. Some people are so sad they become sick. Yes, it is possible. For example, if someone criticizes us constantly and we stay at home all the time, we become too sad and get sick for several days. Or when we lose property, the loss of property affects our material well-being, but because we are too sad, we also get sick. Or one says something that shocks us. Some people spit up blood when they are too shocked. It flows out of their mouth. So we see that the feelings of sadness, love, anger, hatred are sadness, happiness, pleasure, suffering. Many of these, when excessive, affect our body, disrupt the body, and cause disorder in the body. There are people who are too sad and go crazy, like in the stories during the Buddha's time. There was a mother who lost her child and went crazy because she was too sad. So we see that sadness, happiness, pleasure, and suffering are not simply located in the feeling aggregate B. Sometimes they destroy other aggregates. For example, when it destroys the aggregate of form, the body, it makes the body sick. When it destroys the aggregate of mental formations, it makes people go crazy. So, in practicing Buddhism, as well as in living a proper life, we must be careful with these feelings of suffering and happiness. So, we should practice Buddhism so that we do not become excessively sad. However, the suffering of the mind is also influenced by karma. So, we have debts and affinities from previous lives, so we have a lot of love and longing. And when we have a lot of love and longing, we suffer a lot. For example, when we love someone too much, it is because of a lot of karmic debts and affinities from the past. When we lose that person, we will suffer a lot. So, we see that, in the end, the loss and suffering today have a karmic cause from some previous life. So, everything belongs to karma. So, although we say it is psychological, it is also karma. For example, a person who loves their position as director, their having that position is also due to their merit from before, isn't it? And their merit cannot last forever, so one day they will be dismissed or have to retire. And when they retire, they are sad. So their merit has ended, so the factor of sadness, happiness, pleasure, and suffering in their mind is not purely psychological. It is also influenced by karma, karmic retribution, sin, and merit. Now, for a Buddhist like us, who is currently a director, we know that one day we will also have to retire, which means we will no longer be in that position. And we know that we will be sad. We will feel empty for a long time. So, how can we prepare for that day so that we are not sad and do not feel empty? Do you know what to do? Oh, consider it unimportant. That is a psychological approach. The T is, you mean to take it lightly. While you hold that position, you take it lightly so you won't be sad when you lose it. That is a psychological reasoning and it is correct, but it is only psychological. It does not include karma. Our sadness is also related to karma, right? So, it is not just a psychological factor, but also a factor of karma, karmic retribution, sin, and merit. So, what do we do? Some people say to do good deeds. That is correct. What do we do? While we have not yet retired from the position of director, we hurry to accumulate a lot of merits so that this merit prepares us. So that even if we retire from the position of director, suddenly another joy will arise and take its place immediately because we have enjoyed all the merit of being a director, but then we will age. Other merit to compensate because throughout the time we were a director, we knew how to accumulate merit. It is always like that. It is not just a psychological factor. As for someone who, now, let's speak strongly. They say, while I am working, I look down on it. So when I lose it, I am not sad. That is a saying based on reasoning, but in reality, it is not true. When that day comes, you will still be sad. You will definitely be sad. I guarantee it 100%. I'll give you a 2-year warranty. I guarantee it. When that time comes, you will say, oh, why wasn't I sad before and now I am? Why? Oh, you will still feel a lingering sadness. So, remember that our sadness, happiness, pleasure, and suffering are sometimes psychological, but they are also influenced by the law of karma, karmic retribution, sin, and merit. Therefore, from now on, strive to accumulate a lot of merit. One day, when all the illusory things disappear, your family, suddenly other merit will fill the void, and you will see. Continue to live in peace and happiness without being sad or suffering. Do you agree? It will help anyone who is a director. So many directors are. This is about feelings and it involves 2 things. It is deeply rooted in the mind, so it is very difficult to eradicate. The issue of feelings is not easy to overcome. Someone who is not good to us, it is very difficult, it is not easy to simply stop feeling. So we have to love, beg, embrace their feet and cry, but it is repaying a debt. That is what love often is. I end this cycle. So, the best way to live in this world as a Buddhist is to limit our expectations from others and help others more, so that good fortune and opportunities come to us. If we receive summit, hing with one hand, we must use the other hand to accumulate merit and share it. We should not keep it. We should not keep it. Again, if we live like that, people looking at us will think we are rich. We just accept it. Inside, we may have no money, but outside, we are generous. So it looks like we are rich. But in reality, if we live like that, it is like we are a transmitting station. Whoever gives us something, we immediately receive it, and then we find ways to accumulate merit by giving. If we live without being dependent on others, we will suffer less later. As for someone who gives us a lot, they might later oppress us in many ways. That is what we are talking about, the suffering of separation from loved ones. The things we love will be the things that cause us suffering when we see them. So we must control our minds regarding the things we love too much, the people we love too much, the events, possessions, fame, and status that we love too much. These are all seeds of suffering. Remember that. Secondly, we are talking about meeting with disliked ones, which means having to live together or near someone we dislike, which is very annoying, isn't it? For example, we live in a neighborhood and right in front of our house, the alley is not very wide. Our house and the next house are very close, and there is an old woman there who keeps shouting and yelling and gossiping and talking loudly and even rudely. We suffer greatly and are very annoyed. We have to live next to that house. Every day we hear her shouting the same song like a hero's anthem as if she wants to break the house. It's very annoying, but we can't sell the house and move elsewhere. It's not easy either. So that is just a little annoyance, but there are things in life that are even more than just annoyance. They are very painful and hateful, but we have to keep living with them because of karmic debt. We are forced to be stuck in a situation that is truly undesirable and uncomfortable. That is also a kind of fearing, but it is the opposite of living in a state of suffering, not trying to escape from it, so you don't know the extreme suffering and difficulty. Has anyone ever suffered in such a situation and couldn't escape? Then you will know that it is truly necessary to follow the Buddha's Eightfold Noble Path, step by step. Only then can you truly escape suffering. Now, do you want to stop hating? Is it easy? No. For example, many times it is not just our subjective hatred. For example, our neighbor has a problem, we don't even meet him much, and we don't particularly hate him because he just has eyes that don't look straight. They always converge on one point, so we hate him. We hate him. So now it is truly easy. What do we do from hating? We stop being annoyed. Every day when we see his eyes converging on one point, it makes us uncomfortable, doesn't it? So now, the simplest psychological approach is not to hate anymore. Just love those eyes. Love the eyes that converge on one point, and then you won't feel uncomfortable anymore. That is simple, but in the story of Cinderella and the stepmother, the stepdaughter can only escape from that suffering. And how? By death or by marrying the prince, isn't it? Or the people who have to escape suffering by going into the mountains and living like tigers to escape the suffering caused by the officials. We see that it is not simple, that's why we suffer, we are bound by adversity, and it is because we cannot escape, because we cannot. So, in this regard, the factor of merit is very important. The factor of accumulating merit. When you have merit, you don't have to be in adversity as much. Therefore, we must know how to accumulate merit, and accumulating merit is one of the aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path. Remember that. Why do people with merit suffer less? Because accumulating merit often means following the Eightfold Noble Path correctly. Remember that. Doing what is CORRECT according to the Eightfold Noble Path, which includes correct action and correct speech, remember that. So, people who practice correct action and correct speech always have merit from the past. They suffer less. As for us, we are bound by adversity. We suffer because we lack merit, that's all. Now, let's talk about the saying, don't hate anymore, but be patient and compassionate. Isn't it? For example, now we live in a neighborhood where there are gangsters. They are guarding the alleyway, at both ends and demanding money. They are oppressing you, bullying you. You are suffering. Now, according to reasoning, if you don't hate anymore, you won't suffer. Don't hate the gangsters, just be patient and compassionate, and you won't suffer, right? Is that possible? Why not? If you say that, you fall into the error of being passive acceptance of harm. Living life is very suffering. It is not easy. It is difficult to get out of adverse situations, but you think that because you hate the gangsters, you suffer. So don't hate, love them. No, that is not the Buddhist teaching. That is, you are agreeing with their actions and you fall into what sin? The sin of collaborating with evil people. This is not patience and compassion, but falling into the sin of collaborating with evil people. This sin is judged by the law, and the law of karma also judges the sin. So here there is no patience and compassion leading to happiness if it means condoning wrongdoing. However, your karma makes you sad, you don't know what to do, but you must always have the aspiration in your heart that life should be good and pure, without anyone oppressing anyone, without anyone exploiting anyone. We must have that aspiration. We must have that aspiration. That is reasoning, right? It is different from the adverse situations we are talking about. For example, people suffering. From floods and droughts, isn't that suffering? Or being constantly engulfed in the smoke and fire of war, isn't that also a terrible social suffering? No one likes war, but because of karma or so. Me times lasts for 5, 10, 20, or 30 years. That is terrible suffering. So, in general, this is about meeting with disliked ones. We are surrounded by bad things, evil things, and injustices, and we feel trapped and unable to escape. That is suffering. It is not simply a matter of not hating anymore and being free from suffering. That is not possible without changing the conditions. Finally, we talk about the next suffering, which is not getting what one desires. This means not getting what we wish for, and therefore we suffer. In this life, there are many things we wish for. For example, we wish that the person we love would not break up with us. But it doesn't happen, and finally they break up, so we suffer. That is how it is. We choose not to let bad things come to us, but they still come and we still suffer. And there are things that we don't have. But we wish to have them, and we wish for them forever, and we still don't get them, so we also suffer. For example, what? For example, we are poor, so we wish and want to be rich, but it doesn't happen. If you don't give me money, I am tired and annoyed. I am in pain. Now, throw everything out and face the battlefield. I want to die. Why didn't you buy it? You didn't give it to me to eat, so each child craves it, he craves it and doesn't get it, so he also suffers, but the level is minor. It is a relative thing. It is the kind of thing that I hate you very much. So you keep knocking on my door. You want to die. For example, there are some hidden aspirations. The person who is a director wants to become the chairman. The director is afraid of death, afraid of losing his position, afraid of going to prison, so he sits outside and suffers. But if you pray for something and you get it, then what? Then you will not suffer, right? If you pray for something and you get it, you will not suffer. But why do you pray for something and get it? Some people pray and don't get it, so they suffer, but why do you pray and get it? You don't suffer. Exactly, it is also because of merit. Because you have merit, what you wish for is achieved. And merit is one of the aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path. Remember that. Accumulating merit means you are practicing the Eightfold Noble Path correctly. And whoever can do anything on the Eightfold Noble Path, that person will have a little bit of joy and will suffer a little bit less. As for someone who practices the Eightfold Noble Path perfectly, that person will permanently end the suffering of samsara, birth and death. As for us, when we accumulate merit, we are doing a part of it. Remember that. Whatever you do, you must strive to accumulate merit. You must do it. Some people are sad when they see society declining in morality and sins are rampant. Evil people have the opportunity to manipulate and exploit, and these people see this and are too sad and want to do something to save society, but they cannot, and they are always troubled and suffering. That is called dissatisfaction. Dissatisfied people are those who want society to be better, but they see that society is not yet good, and they wish for it to be better. They wish for it to be better like that. They wish for the government officials to be more upright and honest. But they encounter many cases where it is not like that, and they want to do something to reform society, but they cannot, so they suffer and are sad. Some people have that feeling, which is also called the suffering of not ting what one desires. But remember this. Do you think their aspiration is good? Yes, it is good. But why do they suffer? Remember this when we talk about the cause of suffering as selfishness next time. We will analyze it together and know that everything that makes us suffer has the seed of selfishness. But in the case of a person who sees society declining and suffers and wants to do something, but cannot, is that suffering due to selfishness? No, but why do they still suffer? Isn't that right? So, if we talk according to the formula that selfishness causes suffering, then we see that in his case, it seems like the person who dreams of a better society but cannot achieve it and suffers, their dream is not selfish, but they still suffer. So, it seems like the Buddha's formula is that there is selfishness and there is suffering, but this person's dream is not selfish, but they still suffer. But is it wrong? No, it is not wrong. The Buddha is not wrong. The person is wrong in their understanding or approach. Why? Because the person who dreams of a better society and wants to do something great to help society become better but cannot and suffers, that wanting to do that desire to do something is not really just for society. In it, there is also a mixed desire for themselves, a desire for themselves to be a person of value in society. So, selfishness is still lurking within, so if they cannot achieve it, they suffer mentally. Psychology is very subtle, but it still has selfishness, so there is suffering. A person without selfishness will not suffer. I guarantee that. For example, a person who also sees society declining and wants to do something to make it better, but in their heart, they never dream of glory for themselves, they never want to say, "Why, I am doing this to prove myself." Then, even if that person cannot achieve it, they do not suffer. They just think, well, I'll keep looking for opportunities to do it. I'll do something else I'll accumulate merit. They are calm and accumulate merit first because they cannot do it, they know they lack merit. So, that person does not suffer. If you truly dream of a better society, and there is no trace of personal ambition mixed in, you will never suffer. But if your dream sounds noble, but unexpectedly in your heart, there is personal ambition mixed in, you will definitely suffer. Oh, remember that. The Buddha's words are never wrong, never wrong. In the past, when Dang Dung, a warrior, failed and could not restore the country, he also went to the mountains and wrote poetry. Heroes who were unsuccessful in their time, like Jiang Zia who fished or Liu Bang who sold meat before their success, easily achieved success later, but they still felt heroic resentment during ir struggles. So, when heroes suffer resentment because they cannot achieve anything, in reality, we understand that these people had love for their country. But there was also a hidden personal time within them. They wanted to be known as heroes, This is a subtle matter. Now, the eighth and final suffering is the suffering of the 5 clinging aggregates. The 5 aggregates are form, body, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. The first is the body and feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness belong to the mind. These 5 aggregates cause suffering, which means that this body and mind are inherently a mass of suffering, or prone to suffering due to clinging. Please do not smoke while listening to the lecture. Please put out your cigarette. This body and mind are a mass of suffering. When we hear that this body and mind are a mass of suffering, we feel a little surprised and think that Buddhism is pessimistic. No, because we clearly see that we have this body to live and this mind to live, but why did the Buddha say? Why that this body and mind are a mass of suffering? But after we calm down and think about it, we realize that the Buddha's words are true. For example, first of all, regarding this body, is this body happy or suffering? Let's analyze it point by point. If we don't feed this body for a day, what happens? Or cover our nose and don't let it breathe for 5 minutes, what happens? And what about its need for excretion? What happens? Do we also suffer? For example, if we don't bathe for 10 days, what happens? Do you see? So, is the body inherently a source of suffering? Do you see? So, the Buddha's RDS are accurate. So, our body suffers because the needs of the body are very basic human needs, and it is difficult to nourish this body and feed it, isn't it? It is difficult our whole lives, isn't it? Every day we go to work for 8 hours to take care of what? To take care of this body. So, is it suffering or happiness? Let's talk about it. Because of this body, we have to wear clothes, we have tea. Oh, cover it. Don't we have to cover it and make it warm? Yes. And we are human, so we have to cover it with clothes, don't we? And it has to be fashionable too, hasn't it? For example, just because it is due to merit, and merit is related to the Eightfold Path. Remember that. Or a healthy person always feels refreshed and confident. A weak person always feels tired and uncomfortable. And we talked about that before. A strong person always feels refreshed, which is also a kind of happiness, and to be strong you also need. What? For example, our body needs to be covered, and we have money, so we cover it with luxurious and beautiful clothes. Are we proud? If we go out wearing beautiful clothes, do we feel happy? That happiness is also related to merit, isn't it? And protecting this body to keep it safe and free from injuries is also a lot of suffering, isn't it? For example, if you ride a two-wheeled vehicle, a motorcycle, you have to wear a helmet to protect your body. And wearing a helmet is not very pleasant because it is heavy and cumbersome, and if you get a headache from it, you are also uncomfortable. But because you are protecting your body, you also suffer. When it rains, you have to wear a raincoat. In the cold season, you have to wear warm clothes. When it is too sunny, you have to wear sunglasses, and you always have to carry identification purse with you. If the police check, you can show them to prove you are a good citizen. So, there are many things to protect the body. Is it not suffering? When we first heard the Buddha say that the body is suffering, we didn't believe it. We thought, what suffering is there? We were puzzled. But after analyzing it, we agree with the Buddha, don't we? Do you respect the Buddha? The Buddha's words are never wrong. We don't understand them fully. That's why many people, when they hear about the Four Noble Truths and the Buddha's analysis that life is suffering, they quickly say that Buddhism is pessimistic because they only think superficially, and they don't understand the Buddha's subtle meaning. Now, we have talked about the body being suffering, haven't we? Do you agree? Yes, it's all over. It's all over. The body is suffering. Now that we have this suffering body, what should we do? We are struggling with this suffering body. Since the body is suffering, we should commit suicide? No, not that word. To escape the suffering of the body by such means is a very superficial thought. It is not like that. Since this body is suffering and we see ourselves suffering, does the body of our fellow human beings suffer? Yes, it also suffers, doesn't it? Everyone is like that. So, now that we are suffering, we accept to suffer a little more to help others feel better and suffer less. Can you do that? Can you do that? There are few people answering. Let me ask again. Our body is suffering, and the body of our fellow human beings is also suffering. Now that we know Buddhism, we accept to let our bodies suffer a little more to help the bodies of our brothers and sisters of our fellow human beings suffer a little less. Can you do that? Good. Don't talk too much. Just do it. Doing that means being compassionate. You must accept to suffer more and strive out of love for your fellow human beings to help your fellow human beings. Remember that. We know that this life is suffering. Therefore, in the midst of suffering, we face it bravely and make full use of this body to bring benefits. We vow in our hearts that we will live our whole lives to bring love, happiness, and benefits to our brothers and sisters, to our fellow human beings. We vow this because we know that one day any will die. Every body will suffer, but we vow to accept more suffering and strive even harder to make our brothers and sisters suffer less. Let us live bravely with this suffering body, with this suffering body, we will make others suffer less. Remember that, promise me, okay? Now let's talk about the mind. The mind is a massive suffering. We just talked about the body being suffering, and now the mind is a massive suffering. First of all, in our mind, we have ignorance and attachment. Because we have ignorance and attachment, this mind creates countless unwholesome thoughts, such as ignorance, defilements, and sins, such as selfishness, arrogance, greed, envy, jealousy, and resentment, which push us to create karma and bind us back into it. In this mind, first of all, there is attachment and ignorance and attachment, so there are many unwholesome thoughts. Selfish, arrogant, full of pride, etc. So, these unwholesome thoughts will push us to create karma by what? If we are greedy, we will seize what belongs to others. If we are arrogant, we will be down upon by others. If we are envious and jealous, we will want to harm others. So, these unwholesome thoughts push us to create karma, and these unwholesome thoughts themselves are already making us restless. Now let's consider it. When we look at a neighbor and we look at that person with a mind of love and compassion, or we look at that person with a mind of irritation and envy, envy makes us suffer? Envy and jealousy. Is it not true that when we are envious and jealous, we feel uncomfortable? In reality, in our mind, we are restless and suffering, but when we look at that person with a mind of pure compassion, we feel peaceful and at ease. Why? Because peace and ease belong to what? To the Eightfold Noble Path. Remember that. Everything that is on the Eightfold Noble Path makes us peaceful and happy. Everything outside the Eightfold Noble Path makes us suffer. So, when we think of others with an unwholesome mind, with a mind of greed, envy, jealousy, and resentment, I guarantee that at that very moment we are already suffering. This is not to mention the suffering that will come later as a result of karma. When the karmic retribution catches up with us, it will end us and cause us to suffer many times more. But now, just with that unwholesome mind, we are already restless and suffering. However, we also have good qualities, such as love and humility. Thinking about these qualities makes us peaceful and happy, doesn't it? When we see ourselves as small, we respect everyone and natura. Why we are at ease? But when we see ourselves as better than others, we are looked down upon by others, and immediately our mind is disturbed and restless. And if we are too arrogant towards others, we might go crazy. Remember that. Most cases of madness are caused by arrogance. Most cases are like that. So, when we look down on others, we suffer, and when we respect others, we see ourselves as humble, and naturally we feel peaceful and happy. So, these thoughts of looking with respect, being humble, loving, and compassionate all belong to the Eightfold Noble Path. They are all due to our knowing how to practice Buddhism. On the contrary, attachment and clinging make us hate others, make us greedy and selfish, and make us suffer. As for what is contrary to attachment and clinging, it belongs to the Eightfold Noble Path. If we can follow the Eightfold Noble Path, attachment and clinging will decrease. So, it creates ethics, and in that ethics we know how to love, how to be humble, to endure, how to be patient. Then we will always have peace and happiness. That is the principle of the mind. So, let me explain in a little detail. The mind is always craving happiness. The body is always craving food and drink. The body is always craving breath. That is the body. As for the mind, it also has its cravings. It has its cravings, its yearnings, its feeling of happiness. If we are idle and do nothing, we cannot stand it, can we? There must be something to make us happy, excited, active, and less bored. So now, if you were told to stay in a room by yourself, you cannot stand it. If you do not know how to practice Buddhism, only someone who is in a room and knows how to meditate, knows how to listen to Dharma talks, knows how to chant the Buddha's name, that person will find joy in practice, which is contrary to the usual tendency of the mind. But normally, if you do not know how to practice Buddhism, you will never close the door and stay in the room alone. You will inevitably open the door and look for something to do, to talk to a friend to feel less bored, to listen to music, to go out and look at the streets and people walking back and forth, which also helps to feel less bored. So, we remember that the mind is always craving the feeling of happiness, and some people crave it so much that they commit sins and become sick. There are people who seek pleasure in places of debauchery such as nightclubs, discos, drugs, and narcotics, because these things give people a strong feeling of pleasure, a very strong temporary feeling of happiness. They do not accept a gentle happiness. For example, when you are sad, you go to a friend and talk about the Dharma and you feel happy and less sad, don't you? But some people, because their minds are they crave very strong feelings of pleasure, so they go to nightclubs and get drunk, they go to discos and rave and sing along with the music, or they use narcotics, etc., or they race cars and they feel a thrill. That is the craving for the feeling of happiness, and when they crave it too much, they become sick and commit sins. Therefore, this is where we know how to practice Buddhism according to the Eightfold Noble Path. In mindfulness and concentration, we know how to stay in peace and are not deceived by the craving for happiness. So, we are peaceful in the Dharma, peaceful in meditation, peaceful in chanting the Buddha's name. So, we are less likely to be led towards falling into evil ways and committing sins. This is the difference, the key difference between sin and merit. In our sadness, if we know how to focus our minds and chant the Buddha's name, we will gradually become more virtuous. If we know how to listen to the sutras and prostrate to the Buddha, we know that our merit is gradu. ally increasing. On the other hand, if in our sadness we seek trivial pleasures, we are very likely to go to places of debauchery and commit sins. Therefore, the mind is always craving the feeling of happiness. And because of that feeling of happiness, we work hard our whole lives. Now, if you want to go to a nightclub, you have to spend money, don't you? Nobody gives you drinks for free. Nobody hugs you for free. You have to pay money. So, to have money to pay for that, you have to work hard and suffer. We see that in this world, what is called happiness is actually something you have to pay for, and the price is your effort. That is how it is, clearly, just like that. So, happiness often leads to suffering afterwards. Isn't it? It's not easy. The best thing for our mind is peace. The best happiness for our mind is peace. A person who can live in the sun, in meditation, in peace, that person has true happiness. So, I remember when I was young, I met a friend who clearly was someone who had a lot of fun, but when he became older, he realized something. He saw that true happiness is the peace of mind, not wild pleasures. But young people usually don't know that. Young people usually love to wild pleasures until their lives are tired and ruined, and then they realize that true happiness is the peace of mind. So now that we know Buddhism, we are wiser. We are not so foolish as to seek wild pleasures. Instead, we will seek inner peace because that is true happiness. We can maintain our ethics and maintain our principles. And another craving of the mind is that the mind is always craving knowledge and wisdom. Remember that the mind is always craving knowledge, always wanting to know this and that, and it never stops. That is due to the consciousness aggregate. Earlier, I said that our body craves food and drink, and now I will add that our mind craves happiness. Now I will add another craving, the craving for knowledge. It always wants to know this and that. For example, when we see two friends whispering to each other, what do we want? We want to know what they are talking about, don't we? There's that curiosity. That is our mind craving knowledge. It wants to know about other people's affairs, doesn't it? Or reading newspapers every day. We always want to know what is happening in the world. That is the craving for knowledge. And this can be good or bad. Why? Because if the things we know are good, our mind will gradually become good. But if the things we know are bad, our mind will gradually become bad. But what about young people who are just growing up and do not know anything about love, marriage, and sex? But their friends tell them filthy stories, things that are gain knowledge, but after knowing them, they are ruined. But if young people are taught the Dharma and Karma as they grow up, it is also knowledge, but it makes them better. So that kind of knowledge belongs to correct view in the Eightfold Noble Path. Correct view makes people better, peaceful, and happy. As for incorrect knowledge, knowing things that are not appropriate, things that you hold not know, but you keep seeking them out, what happens? People become corrupted and ruined for life. Therefore, the mind is always craving knowledge, and we must know how to choose what knowledge is worth knowing and what knowledge is not worth knowing. Especially if we are adults, we have a responsibility towards children. We must only let them know what they need to know. Remember that. And another craving of the mind is that the mind always wants to think and create, always wants to do something. It does not want to be idle. That is the tendency of the mental formations aggregate. Earlier, the craving for knowledge is the tendency of the consciousness aggregate, and the constant desire to do something, not wanting to be idle, is the tendency of the mental formations aggregate. When we are not idle, when we create and seek, there are good things in that seeking. For example, when we work and accumulate merit, when we are willing to do good deeds, we gain merit and reduce attachment and clinging. But when we do evil things, when we think evil thoughts and do selfish things, attachment and clinging cause us more suffering. And we should practice meditation to calm our ins, to stop our minds from being disturbed. When the mind is agitated, busy, and restless, the ego exists. Remember that when the mind is always thinking, restless, agitated, the ego develops, and the ego keeps developing, we are in samsara and cannot escape. Only when the Dharma permeates, the ego can be reduced. Otherwise, if we live by instinct, we become animals. Remember that this body and mind, if we live by instinct, for example, it wants something, and we seek to satisfy that craving, we gradually become an animal because we enjoy sinful pleasures. But if the Dharma permeates, We will not satisfy it with ordinary pleasures, but we will satisfy it with noble pleasures. For example, instead of spending that money on debauchery, we spend that money to help our neighbors. These two actions are different, but one makes us increase our ego, increase our instinct, and become an animal. The other makes us become a saint gradually because of love and helping others, which is so enjoyable, but one satisfies the animal instinct, so we are gradually going towards becoming an animal. As for the other, it also costs money, but it is done according to the Dharma to help others. So we are gradually becoming a human being. They say the children and human beings are half animal and half saint. Or rather, more than half animal. Or more than half saint. If we live by instinct, if our ego increases and we only know how to enjoy, then we are an animal. But if we overcome that pleasure and are willing to sacrifice a little bit to live a noble life, then we are gradually becoming a saint. Remember that. The more agitated this mind is, the more burdened, tense, and uncomfortable a person becomes. That is why meditation relieves the burden and tension of the mind. So, meditation makes us feel lighter in our minds, relieves the agitation and restlessness of the ego, but it still maintains. However, to meditate, we must accumulate a lot of merit and help does a lot, then we can maintain a calm mind even in the midst of mental turmoil. If a person creates karma and goes crazy, it is truly. To be human then is truly not different from being an animal. It is very pitiful. Therefore, we must maintain our minds and accumulate merits so that we do not fall into the state of madness. To be able to meditate is a great merit and a great spiritual practice. So, the mind is peaceful and escapes the suffering of the 5 aggregates. So, when we know that these 5 aggregates are a mass of suffering, we only realize it after we have practiced Buddhism. Escaped from suffering. Looking back, we know that these 5 aggregates are a mass of suffering. We realize it more deeply. So, today we conclude the lecture on the truth of suffering in the 4 holy truths. Next time we will talk about the truth of accumulation. In this suffering, we see that life is truly suffering, just as the poet Don Nguyen Q said, "The sea of suffering is vast. The waves reach the sky. The worldly traveler paddles a boat. Whether going against the wind or with the wind, they are all in the sea of suffering." The poem is truly like that. So we chase after near goals, such as what? Chasing after the wind? We don't see suffering. But the person who asks about suffering and then sees it, they're going against the wind or with the wind, they are all at the center of suffering. And we understand another thing. In this state of shared suffering, we should live with love for each other, not hatred. Let us live with love for each other and join hands to build this world, this life into a heavenly realm of happiness. We accept to suffer more, but so that those around us are happier. That's how it is. Let me ask you again about the 3 sufferings. Suffering of change, suffering of conditioned states. The artist is giving a performance far away. Now I do not have time. How? Is a heavenly being different? Heavenly beings are. If people are still living in this world and practice Buddhism successfully, they are also happy, and heavenly beings are ranked and go to heaven. That is the difference. Even if you do a lot of good deeds and achieve some level of accomplishment, you are still just a human being. In our company, you say this: if you don't kill an animal, it'll fill the earth. Kill it so it can be reborn in a different form, so it doesn't have to be an animal forever. Some people argue like that. Kill it so it can be reborn in a different form, so it doesn't have to be an animal forever. Do you know for sure that when you kill it, it will be reborn as a human? Do you know for sure? Do you have divine powers? No, you don't know. You say, I kill it. Oh, it becomes a human. Is that reasonable? It is like in Islam, after death you go to paradise. Did anyone ask about this? Someone said that some people who die by drowning want to grasp at a passing straw, and a person standing nearby wants to save them but doesn't know how to swim. So, if you don't save them, it's like you have no connection with them, but if you try to save them and you also drown, how should you handle that?